anywhere if you're going to go to New York, but I would think there would be some good ones.
We don't even have a Jewish gift shop here, Jewish store in general here anymore.
Where's here?
In Phoenix or Scottsdale.
We do, yeah.
Robert.
Susan, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Karen.
You have already answered this. Is it known as an affront to God if you wear a mask?
No, why?
Somebody said in a writing group I have that
Ridiculous.
she heard somebody say that the what do you call it? The
Haredi group?
Yes, yes. Think that it's an affront of God to God if you wear a mask.
It's absolutely false.
Okay.
You can break any law, even much more stricter laws, to save a life. And this is for health.
Yes.
It's affront to God to say that.
Yeah.
Because, you can eat on Yom Kippur. You could eat bacon and milk on Yom Kippur if it would save your life. So that's absolutely not true. I'm sorry to be so vehement. That's absolutely not true at all. And what kind of God would that be? You know what I mean? That didn't want you to preserve your health of you or your family or whatever. So no.
Or even those you don't know, right?
Exactly. Walking around, anyone. It's no.
And also, I love that I didn't know this, but that we can judge. We can judge those who are putting other people's lives in danger.
But we know the difference between right and wrong, and we definitely should have an opinion about it. I don't know that we were going to take them to court, but we don't have to approve, and we don't have to be neutral when we see. It says, do not stand idly by while the blood of your neighbor is being spilled, meaning that you're not supposed to be indifferent to that. And people who walk around without masks breathing on other people, it's kind of like spilling blood, or it's a potential, in my opinion. In my opinion. So you're not supposed to stand idly by. On the other hand, you're not going to risk being punched in the face and getting into an argument about it. But I mean, if I see someone I actually was getting on an elevator in Beverly Hills. It was one of these parking. I had to come down, and the door opened, and there was a woman without a mask. And I said, you can't come in. You have to.
Great. What'd she say?
Nothing. I closed the door. I said, sorry, no, I'm not sharing the elevator with you.
Right.
And I closed the door and I went down and let her come down, get in her own elevator, but I wasn't going to do it. I'm not.
The thing though that's so unsettling is that she's going to get in an elevator. She's going to cough without a mask. She's going to get out of the elevator, and someone else is going to go in the elevator with a mask, but with no goggles, and it can go in through the eyes. And it's just so inconsiderate and haphazard. And I don't understand.
A lot of people are walking down the stairs, and I just started parking in an outdoor parking lot because I didn't even want to risk it. So today is our last class of this series, which was when I look back on all the things we have covered, it's unbelievable. So many topics on such a wide scope and I have all the notes and all the teaching, so I can do it again. But we're starting a whole new series next week. On Mondays, the cantor will be teaching about music and liturgy and the history of Jewish music. And he brings artists, singers, all kinds of things. Here, Don has the complete offering in the chat if you haven't downloaded it. On Tuesdays, starting next week, is going to be an introduction to Judaism class, but it's going to be on large, even if you might want to check in, like Rabbi Leader is kicking it off, talking about God. It's like God, Israel, Torah. I mean, it's like big topics. So you might be interested in philosophy, but it might be too simple for this group, which is very sophisticated. And then on, I don't like it when it turns
Wednesday.
Yeah, I know. It just suddenly turned into this view that I don't like. I like the gallery view. Okay. Also, starting October 27th, for 4 classes in the morning at 9:30 a.m. And the reason it's at 9:30 is it's coming from Israel, from Tel Aviv, is this unbelievable teacher tour guide who's going to be doing 4 days of Jewish Europe. And he has slides, PowerPoint, stories, and everything. And he's going to teach about Poland, Russia, Spain, medieval Spain, and Berlin. So
when is that, Susan? When is that?
starts
Amy?
October 27th on Tuesdays at 9:30 a.m. Yes, Sue.
Suze, is it going to be available online? Because I have another commitment that day.
Yes, everything will be recorded.
Okay,
You can
thank
see.
you.
Great.
Then every Wednesday for the next 6 weeks, we're doing epics, EPOCKS, big chunks of Jewish history, ancient Israel, medieval Israel, medieval Jewry and Christian Europe, Spain, the Enlightenment, and the Holocaust. And one of the teachers will be Leah Hockman, who's a professor of history at HUC. You can look and you'll see which one she's teaching, I think medieval.
You're teaching any of those, Susan?
I'm teaching ancient Israel, yeah.
Okay.
And then on Thursdays is
Rabbi Nickerson.
it's right now it's Cantor Gurney teaching chanting from the Torah. If you want to learn how to chant from the Torah, take Trope for Haftorah and Torah. He's going to teach that. And then on Friday is going to be, the Torah Parsha of the week. And every week is a different rabbi, which we've been doing, like that. And then we're going to start adding things at night. And there's a Dol B'nai Mitzvah for anyone who hasn't done that. You're invited to that. And I'm going to be trying to start a film series. I want to start it in November, but I'll see. I have to talk to Jody about it, called Diversity in Judaism. And I want to do films about, I just saw an amazing film about Jews in India called Shalom Bollywood. Amazing. But I want to do different Jews in different sort of far-flung places and their culture and their history. And it could be a feature, or this one is a really good documentary. So I thought that would be interesting to do something like that. But today we're doing our last class in this series, and I thought we should end with why be Jewish? Why be Jewish after all this? And I found like 5 or 6 sources of different points of view. How many people have, I suggest, it's worth downloading the texts or whatever. You should. So the first one is Rabbi Kari Olitsky, who is a big Reform rabbi, but he's written all these books and prayers, and he's very thoughtful. The second one is a humanist rabbi who leaves God out of the picture altogether, and he has his reasons. The third is, I found this really great rabbi in Maryland who wrote a beautiful explanation of why to be Jewish. Then I added Barry Weiss in talking about, the way to fight anti-Semitism is to be a proud Jew. And then finally, something from 1894 after the Dreyfus Affair and a declaration of what it means to be Jewish. So we're going to look at them, but I also want you to start to become conscious of which ones speak to you. What resonates with you, why you are Jewish. And there may be pieces from all the different points of view, and you may have your own point of view. So let's just start with that. Why be Jewish? Why remain Jewish? And, I just want to point out, and I want to hear from you. One of the writers said there used to be these 2 or 3 reasons in the 50s that he feels no longer really work. One is that the Holocaust killed 6 million Jews, so we're obliged to remain Jewish. He said, in 2021, that just, it doesn't make people want to stay Jewish just because. The other one is, it's been going on for 5,000 years, so how can I break the chain? I think those are the 2 main ones. Or, anti-Semites want to kill us, we need to stay Jewish. So those were the ones that people used to say in the 50s and 60s, which were all kind of like guilt, really, or bad things, but there was no positive reason. It was all based on oppression or guilt, and that maybe worked, but no longer works. So now thoughtful rabbis and teachers and scholars have dug much deeper to say, yeah, that's the negative part, but there's so many positive reasons to be Jewish, which is much more effective, and appealing to people. So I'm just curious to you, who wants to share Why be Jewish? Okay, Pnina.
I like the line that says, I am a Jew, because Israel places humanity and its unity above nations and above Israel itself. Which
Okay,
is proving in their actions every time that there is a disaster or a need for them to show their ability to help and to teach and to create.
right. So Israel values all humanity. You know, it's not just us and them, but we value all humanity. Any other reason that it doesn't have to be from this, it can be your own opinion. Why be Jewish? Why? And maybe you're not ready to talk about it yet until we read some of this stuff. Does anybody want to say anything now? Yes, Merle.
To me, it's always been a value system.
Values.
It's like, you know, you read Torah, and even though it's repeated every year, you find new values in it. And it's the best way I can describe it, a way of life.
Wait, before we continue, I realize we didn't say the blessing, so let's just say it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'asot b'divrei Torah. Okay, so let's look at Kerry Olitsky. He's the executive director of the Big Tent Judaism and Jewish Outreach. So he's really about outreach to, this doesn't mean non-Jews, but to so many disaffiliated Jews, so many Jews who say, you know, I was born Jewish, or I'm a little bit culturally Jewish, but it means nothing to me. I don't care if I intermarry. I don't care if I continue it or not. So this is his goal, to reconnect people to the beauty of Judaism. So who has this list? Does anybody? Okay, Robert, why don't you read the first three?
Okay. As a Jew, the collective story of the Jewish people becomes my personal story. My own life story contributes to the collective memory of the Jewish people. The Jewish historical narrative of the Jewish people evolves as the Jewish people march forward in history and will eventually bring us into the Messianic period.
So basically he's saying, I'm part of a huge story. I'm part of a huge history, and that has value to me. And I always think about like how we respect Native Americans for keeping their culture, for preserving their culture, and or the Tibetans for preserving their culture. And we need to respect our Judaism as we're preserving our history, which is we are one of the longest living cultures or peoples on the face of the earth historically that still exists. And I think I told you once, I met some young guy in his 20s and not Jewish. And I told him I was Jewish. And he said, really? I thought they died out. I didn't know they still existed.
Really? Where was this?
I don't know, from some southern town. And he thought they were like the Israelites, that they didn't.
Was this recently?
I'd say 5 years ago or something.
Ooh,
And it's like the ancient Egyptians or the ancient Greeks or the Phoenicians. It's like you're saying you're a Phoenician. You'd say, really? You're Phoenicians? It's kind of that. Okay, Robert, continue.
The doing of mitzvot brings me closer to the divine. In the refracted divine light, I am able to see myself more clearly.
So when you do good deeds, you feel more elevated. We talked about the Kabbalistic idea of your soul being elevated and feeling closer to God. Continue.
The emphasis of deed over creed encourages the individual, irrespective of personal beliefs or doubts of faith, to help build a better world through the acts of social justice, tikkun olam, and provides the individual with a variety of opportunities to do so. The doing of these good deeds, which emerge from the foundation of positive Jewish values, brings me closer to others and to humanity.
So, you know, he's saying, I feel part of history. When I do good deeds, I feel closer to God. But when I do tikkun olam, which are a certain set of good deeds or main good deeds, I feel closer to humanity and to people as well. So these are three very positive reasons so far to remain Jewish. Okay, the next four, who has a page? Okay, Talia.
3, the emphasis of
Four.
Four, the affirmation of one God is the unity principle that is the foundation of Jewish faith. Judaism encourages questioning and debate. Faith comes through struggle. The result of this struggle helps to define Jewish theology.
So this idea that we believe in one God, or we strive to believe in one God, but we encourage questioning and debate. And I've heard from many Jews by choice, people who convert, one of the things they really liked about Judaism is that you could question, that you could say, this doesn't work for me, or I don't get it, or I need more, or I don't think I can do that right now, or whatever. This idea of questioning, this freedom to breathe in the structure is very appealing and very unique to Judaism. Keep going.
5, the Jewish community provides support to the individual and family during life's liminal moments, including those times in which we soar, as well as those that bring us into the deepest, darkest moments of our lives.
So we also have that, because we're a community, because we ask for a minyan, we ask for 10, we're a group, that we're there for you, for your weddings, for your brists of your kids, your bar mitzvahs, and also for your funerals, for your mourning, for your tragedies, that we come together and support. So these are all pretty positive and beautiful things. Okay, keep going.
6, Judaism transforms daily routine, the long haul of life, into sacred moments and sacred opportunities, especially through the application of ritual, helping to moor us in what is sometimes an anchorless world.
I think, that's so true, especially for things like Shiva, I think is an amazing set of rituals that really help people when they're grieving, as opposed to you're like, somebody dies, you bury them, and then it's like, now what? There's no sort of direction. But in Judaism, there's a very strong direction of what the mourner is supposed to do and what the community is supposed to do to help the mourner. So that also, and daily routine of lighting Shabbat candles, or saying a blessing every time, or when we talked about blessing our food and bringing holiness into the experience. So all of these. Okay, and the last one more.
7, Judaism emphasizes lifelong educational growth of all kinds. Jewish education helps us to morally navigate the world. The Talmud requires parents to teach their children, quote, how to swim, end quote. Judaism also provides a framework for teaching children their moral responsibility to the world.
So I just want to ask you, of these 7, being a part of history, doing mitzvot to bring you closer to God, doing good deeds to bring you closer to humanity, and allow, that doing is more important than faith. It's faith versus works. We believe in actions as Jews, that God, we are allowed to question about God, that we support people during their good times and bad times, that we have sacred opportunities to make life meaningful all the time, and that we support education. So which one of these, or how many of these, or which one of these really resonate with you? Sue?
Well, I was going to ask a question before, and that is, do the Orthodox, would they subscribe to these the same way? I know that they would probably change the order, but I'm wondering if they think that deed is as important as creed. And
yes, the Talmud even says that, and the Chabad for sure,
okay.
Yeah,
Right.
That if it's a question between believing in God and not doing mitzvahs, or doing mitzvahs and not believing in God, they say you should do, because they believe that the doing will bring you closer to God. Just sitting in your room and trying to muster up belief is not as effective as going out and helping people, or giving tzedakah, or celebrating Jewish holidays or Jewish events, or, that's where they believe the faith and the beauty will come from. So I think they may have more, but they would not, I think, object to any of these, in my opinion. So does anyone have any that particularly speak to them? Yes, Talia?
I have an order of how because now I feel like all of them speak to me so strongly. But when I was younger, I used to tout that Jewish families, they believe so much in education that it's so important that, many that I know don't let their kids have college debt, or they they try to like put the money there as opposed to into a Jaguar, you know, like they'd rather pay for education. So that was when I was younger. And then I love the encouraging questioning and debate, of course, because that made me feel comfortable, you know, questioning. And then but now it's everything, like bringing that, oh gosh, it's just everything now. But definitely the collective of just being Jewish, like as a history of people. I used to think that I had to hide that I was Jewish because there was so much anti-Semitism, and that it was almost like a shameful thing just because of the anti-Semitism. And now I realize, like, if I'm going to, of course, support Black Lives Matters or women's rights or Indigenous people's rights, why wouldn't I also feel proud and support my own? So that's kind of those.
Beautiful. So then the last three, he says that we have a variety of spiritual disciplines that elevate the soul. So we have prayer, we have study. Study is very important in Judaism and Shabbat. And that this was interesting, but it's like number 9. The beauty of Judaism and the accomplishments of the Jewish people foster Jewish pride. It's true. We're always saying, oh, he was Jewish. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's Jewish. You know, we're very proud of that. And that we have a home in Israel, that we do have, you know, this holy place that we can all belong to. So this is like Carrie Olitsky's idea of Jewish. So does anybody now want to say to me or us, why be Jewish from any of these? Do any of these reaffirm something that you always felt, Robert?
You know, the thing about Judaism, there's so much I like about it. To me, like Judaism is everything, but just looking at the place of a human being on earth, it's a potentially mysterious, dangerous environment. We're all looking for meaning. We're all looking for purpose. We're all looking for community. We're all constantly thrown moral situations and personal crises and witnesses to crises of others that we're trying to navigate in a loving, moral way that works for everybody, including ourselves. And Judaism, to me, is like Club Mensch. It's like you can come here.
Club Mensch.
You can come here and look at the reality that all human beings are in, and have resources and people and readings to consult. And it's like a never-ending dialectic with love and morality and purpose for the benefit of all of us. And I think that's why Judaism thrives today. And when I studied it, when I was doing my Choosing Judaism class, I realized Jewish thinking is the foundation of certainly the West, if not the entire world. And look at what we've all achieved. So I back up Talia 100%. I'm with the Jewish people all the way. This is a beautiful religion.
Thank you. By the way, everyone, I can't remember if I told you this, but you know, the new Choosing Judaism class is starting soon, and this time Rabbi Shapiro had 66 people contact him about converting.
Wow.
That's great.
I mean, it's like triple what they've ever had before. And it's like out of COVID, who knew? But suddenly people are want to be Jewish.
Rabbi Nanus, you might want to send this to Rabbi Shapiro, this handout you have. It's excellent for that course.
Oh, thank you. Miriam?
I was going to be quiet because I like to hear what my fellow classmates have to say. I always prefer to listen to them, but I need to kind of second and emphasize what Robert just said. He said so many things that Jews that were born Jewish are not even aware.
Right.
We don't even know how much we need to be connected.
Right.
We're told that living in the COVID now, which is presenting so many extra difficulties, we have the opportunity, if we own a computer, to hear 2 or 3 rabbis every day. I hear them, but that's a little much for most people, and I understand that. But what it does is confirm everything that Talia said, everything that you said, Rabbi, everything that Robert said, and it keeps reconfirming it for me almost on a daily basis. I
That's
don't even need it to be reconfirmed and reaffirmed, both, but feel connected,
yes, but
terribly healthy for our growth.
I agree. I want to now thank you. I want to just show you though, here's a rabbi who's a humanist rabbi, meaning he doesn't believe in God, but he still believes in Judaism. And he had 3 reasons to be Jewish, just 3. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, it's long, but the first Jewish, he said, let me share 3 reasons about new ideas why to be Jewish, to stay Jewish, become Jewish, and connect with things Jewish. Jewish is as Jewish does. Judaism is a rich and varied and long tradition that has seen everything from rational philosophy to animal sacrifice to mystical exploration, hereditary kings and priests giving way to rabbis and religious law, multiple languages sharing the same alphabet, and art and creativity celebrated in one corner of the Jewish world while condemned in another. At times we are inspired by our legacy, at times we are alienated, but it basically has multitudes of streams. So he loves this idea. He says there's something for every learning style, every intelligence, every aptitude. That is the beauty of celebrating Judaism as a culture. So he sees it as a culture, and he says it's true. If you look at the history, and we'll do the epics, you will see that Judaism has gone through so many changes, and different thought philosophers have brought in different ideas over these 3,000 years, and we're still redefining it, but the basic values remain the same. And he, as a secular humanist, loves that idea that there's a place for everyone in this huge tent of Judaism and Jewish values.
Rabbi Nanus?
Yes.
When was art and creativity ever when was it ever condemned in Judaism?
You know, you weren't allowed really, according to, if you're very strict on the law, it says you shall not make any images, no images. And so that seemed to be a taboo against visual arts, painters, sculptors, things like that. Yet, archaeologists, and I know Penina will back me up on this, have found mosaics in Israel with beautiful designs. So I think this is the thing about Jewish history that I found. We have this very weird idea that all Jews were religious in the past, that they all followed one way. They were just as varied in ancient Israel as and they intermarried with, you know, Philistines and Phoenicians and whatever, and some were religious, some were not so religious. And so there were, and we know in the Torah there was Bezalel, an amazing artist.
That's
And what
right.
happened was when the temple was destroyed, the rabbi said, well, now we're in mourning, we can't really decorate, design, or whatever. And some people follow that. Really, we haven't had great art, Jewish art, until the 20th century when, you know, Chagall and all these other French Jewish artists and Russian Jewish artists started saying, I don't care. And Rabbi Magnin certainly didn't care. Rabbi Magnin went to Europe,
Right.
looked at all of the great, beautiful art, and he came back and he said, I'm building a temple and I'm having this mural inside, which is like, we're the only temple in the country with this kind of art inside, because he said, I don't go for that. I don't believe that, which is another kind of great thing about the elasticity of Judaism. He said, that was 2,000 years ago. We can have art now. Penina, what did you want to say?
When you mentioned Bezalel, that was what I wanted to bring up. That
Yeah.
Bezalel was in charge of all the artwork in the first temple that Solomon built.
Yeah.
And then till today, we have a company in Israel that's producing all kind of artifact, and we call it Avodat Bezalel. We
Oh, the
still
work of the Bezalel.
the company. and they had all kind of things produced. So I don't know exactly where the prohibition, if you want to say, about art in a temple is
It
coming.
came after the destruction of the second temple, really.
Um,
And that's the same reason which Reformed Jews don't accept and conservative, that they stopped having music in the temple, because there was amazing music in the temples, huge choirs. And we know from the Psalms, if you look at Psalm 50, we should look at that sometime. It says, sing with the lyre, sing with the lute, sing with the, timbrels, sing with this, with the flutes. I mean, they had all this music, they had orchestras, they had choirs and everything in the temple. And then once it was destroyed, it's like, no, we're in mourning. And I mean, 2,000 years later, like Jews said, I think it's enough. I think we can have music, in the temple. And Rabbi Magnin built the biggest organ probably in the country in a synagogue. So, he really just didn't take, buy any of that stuff. And we have this beautiful temple. Yes, Miriam.
I'm so glad you mentioned Bezalel, because I have a couple of things I want to share. One, as early as our Bible, when they were building the menorah, they took tremendous care, Bezalel and his fellow workers,
Right.
to make it beautiful. They weren't just branches.
No.
Each branch was decorated with beautiful blossoms and gold and everything. And it also says in the Israeli Talmud to make the beautiful sukkah.
Yes,
But
to
be beautiful.
enhance everything with beauty. You're
And
right.
then the second thing is, the second commandment says, you shall not make any graven images and as gods before me. Or in other words, we're not allowed to create anything to bow down to, whether it was part of a tree or part of stone or sculpture that we would then bow down to. It does not say you may not create. And
Right.
in Dura Europa Synagogue, which was found in Syria, 3rd century, that's how old that beautiful synagogue is in Syria. They found tremendous murals on the wall. It said nothing about you may not take.
Right. That's right. I'm saying people didn't listen, but some reason the Orthodox of today or the last 150 years we seem to think that's the way it always was, and it wasn't at all. The second thing the secular humanist says is be a Jew, be a mensch. That to be a good person, is part of Judaism, to be a mensch, a good neshama, a good soul. And we take that whole idea of our soul very seriously. And within that, he says we have an emphasis on learning and literacy. This is a repeat, an emphasis on community responsibility and mutual support. He says, Jews have celebrated brains over brawn. That brains are our weapon, and also humor. He celebrates Jewish humor and how we use humor to combat depression, to combat, it's our way of dealing with life at times. So this is his second idea. And his third, which I thought was very interesting, and I want to hear your opinion, he says, Jews are, because they're all over the world, we're scattered. So he's kind of talking about the diaspora. That's my phone. I'm sorry, it'll stop in a minute. We're citizens of the world, and we have a much wider view of the world and of people. And we understand cultures and people in a way that a lot of people who just stay in one place don't. And it gives us this, he says, Jews are a world people speaking different languages, but possessing a common identity. So this international idea, he thinks, is very positive. And we bring our, there was an amazing, what was it, like an essay about how Europe became so much poorer culturally and educationally after they destroyed their Jews, especially in Spain. They talked about it, and in Poland, that they bring a richness and they bring ideas from other places because they are in communication with each other. I mean, even in 500 BCE, we had a Talmud being written in the land of Israel and a Talmud being written in Babylonia, and they were communicating with each other and arguing and discussing and bringing their ideas back and forth. So I thought that was a very interesting idea about Jews, that we see the big picture more than other what's the word, not parochial, who stay at home groups. Any comments or thoughts about, Susan?
Susan, and just adding to that, I read Sherwin Newland's a small book on Maimonides. And the beginning, I don't know whether you're familiar with it, he talks about medicine and Jewish culture, and how in the Middle Ages, potentates, Christian kings, and in the Muslim world too, would want Jewish doctors because
Still the same.
yes, it's still the same. Yes, but one, they traveled and they wanted learning, and Jewish culture, he said, valued learning in the sciences and in different disciplines. And they weren't as insular as we tend to think they are. And they certainly valued healing the body. The body is a covering for the soul. And they felt that if your body is healthy, you have a chance to have your soul healthy as well. So I would recommend that book to anyone. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, Merle, and then.
So what Susan just said is interesting about people wanting to go to Jewish doctors, because on another angle, when the temples or the synagogues here in Phoenix and Scottsdale started opening up Jewish preschools and day schools, all of the very non-Jewish professors at ASU wanted to enroll their children in the Jewish preschools, and then moving forward, because their attitude is that the Jewish preschools and day schools, etc., have more ethical behavior and morality, and that their teachers follow Judaism. And all these people, especially the Asian professors, wanted their children in the Jewish schools and couldn't wait to get their kids in as they started opening.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Panina.
Maimonides was a doctor.
Yes, he was. He was a doctor, but not
Yes. To the where was it, wherever he lived, to the king there, or to the
he was the caliph in Israel, in Egypt.
So
We studied his medical, remember, we read all about his medical therapies one class. We read all of his suggestions for health and diet and everything. Yes, he was a doctor and a rabbi.
And to bring you to what's happening today in the Middle East, you know that Israel formed hospitals on the border between Syria and Israel, and it's Syrian soldiers who nobody knew what to do with them anymore and help them if they were wounded in the war in Lebanon, were sent to the Israeli border hospital with no name on their tags. So the family is not going to be accused of being spies or anything. And all it says on the tickets was, see what you could do for them and send them to the Israelis to be taken care of and maybe save their lives.
Right. I showed that film on Yom Kippur afternoon. I don't know how many people saw it, called The Syrian Patient, about a group of Syrians taken to that hospital. It was a documentary about their stories. So you're absolutely right. So, oh yes, Miriam.
I just wanted to say, I loved your statement that said Jews all over the world are so different from each other, but then they do have a common identity.
Right.
Now, you don't have to go all over the world. Go to La Brea Avenue, and you are seeing another world.
Yes,
You are
but
seeing a world that is no longer present, but they hold on to it. And I live in the Miracle Mile. I don't live far from La Brea. Of course, somebody lives in West LA. Going to La Brea Avenue is like going somewhere to East LA. It's very close, but they don't think so. So what you see on Shabbat are the little kids, the big kids, the mothers, the fathers, the grandfathers. The men are wearing white stockings. They have their black trousers into them. The strommels are huge. Even the little kids are wearing very large strommels, even on a hot summer day. And of course, the women are wearing their shinos.
Yeah, but Miriam, that's
No,
not.
I'm not saying it judgmentally, excuse me. I'm
No,
saying
no.
it as a social phenomenon that exists miles from where we live.
Yes, but what I think is more to the point is like when I was in Italy and I had a Jewish star on and I went into the marketplace, the guys who were selling looked at it and they would go shalom, shalom, and shake my hand and almost kiss me. And then if I went to some other place, even though I didn't, you know, they were Sephardic and they spoke Italian, whatever, there was this common, not just like, we're not talking about denominations. I say, we're talking about you go to Greece, you go to Morocco, you go somewhere else where everything is different, but they're Jewish, and you feel this instant kinship that is recognizable. And you walk into a shul anywhere in the world and people are going to welcome you and come to you and whatever. So more than like the difference between denominations, I think he's saying we're like cosmopolitan all over the world. And as Susan said, all these, you know, millennia, we would seek knowledge from wherever we were and then share it with our fellow Jews who would then bring it into the cultures that they lived in. So, you know, when Jewish merchants went to China and they learned something or found something, they brought it back and then it would spread. So this is what this guy is saying was a benefit of the diaspora in a way, which is a new idea that I never heard of. I just want to move on to this other rabbi from Maryland named Adam Rosenwasser, who says there are three main reasons to be Jewish in America. He wrote this last year in 2019. And basically, it's it's kind of a consolidation. He said it helps us to understand ourselves with, work, and he uses Musar as a big thing, improving ourselves. It provides us with a community, which is true. I just said you can walk anywhere in the world, walk into a shul, and you're going to be taken care of. And it gives us an essential task and purpose to mend the world, tikkun olam. So these are like, and you see that God, the idea of God is only in the first one. And even in the idea of God, because who was asking this? Talia, right? About like believing in, faith versus action. That even the one that mentions God says, but we can argue about it. The rest of them don't even mention God. They say we're a community that takes care of each other, takes care of the world, has sacred rituals that make things meaningful and beautiful, support each other in the good times and the bad times, and are a part of a huge history all over the world. So I want to look at now on page 6 what Barry Weiss said. Who would like to read that? Somebody.
I will read it.
Susan Ehrlich.
Okay, yes, I really liked what she's been saying. To fight anti-Semitism, be a proud Jew. These trying times, our best strategy is to build without shame a Judaism and a Jewish people and a Jewish state that are not only safe and resilient, but also generative, humane, joyful, and life-affirming. A Judaism capable of lighting a fire in every Jewish soul and in the souls of everyone who throws in his or her lot with ours.
So why do you like that so much?
Well, I liked her. There was AJU discussion, Jeffrey Herbst with her, and her earlier this year, and her ideas. And she I think, oh, do I like this? Interesting. I love it. I've been receiving a lot of comments, and one was from a student, and this was in the reform movement, saying how to combat anti-Semitism on campus. And he was from Berkeley, and he said, I want to tell them that I don't agree with things in Israel, and we can still promote Israel because they do things that aren't correct, but we can correct it. There was nothing in there about I love Israel because it's a leader in, you could say in technology, in irrigation, in things that have improved the world, in medicine, and helping other countries. There was nothing positive about it. There was all, I'm with you that there are bad things, but we can correct it. She's saying, be a proud Jew in these trying times. You know, say what you love about. It's build without shame, which the Berkeley student had. A Jewish people that are safe and resilient and generative. So I see this as a very joyful and life affirming. He's not going to change the BDS people in any event, but at least for himself, he could be proud of being Jewish, for the thing and of Israel, of the building that they do, rather than saying, oh yes, they do things that I don't like, but
And Israel is only, I mean, Israel is only one portion of our Jewish identity.
That's correct.
And Israel has only, you know, Israel existed, you know, until 2,000 years ago. Then it didn't exist until like 70 years ago, 72 years ago. So in between is a huge wealth of Jewish culture and teaching and learning that you can say, I have a problem with this, but Judaism over the centuries. So finally, and I'd love different people to read these. This is really interesting. This man named Edmund Flegg, he was a French poet and a writer and an essayist. He was raised in an unobservant household. He didn't think a lot about his Judaism until the Dreyfus affair, where Dreyfus was, you know, falsely accused of being a traitor. They convicted him. Then he was ultimately released. People were saying, kill the Jews. This is in the 1890s. And he wrote this letter to his unborn grandson. And I think this is really beautiful. And it's actually in our Siddur, by the way. It's in our Mishkan Tefillah Siddur. So who has this to read some of them? I'd love to hear someone who hasn't read. You, Roy, you want to read a few of them?
Sure. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of my mind.
Meaning, you know, you're allowed to have your thoughts. You're allowed to disagree. You don't have to like accept irrationality. Read one more.
I am a Jew because the faith of Israel asks every possible sacrifice of my soul.
So what does that mean, do you think, sacrifice of my soul? What does that mean? I'm curious what you think that means. I think it means that you have to do the right thing no matter what. You know, that you have to do the right thing, the correct thing, the true thing, even, you know, even if it's really hard. Okay, somebody else. Who else has one? Who has it? Sukasa, do you have it? Why don't you read a couple? If you unmute, though.
There we go. Okay, I'm a Jew because in all places where there are tears and suffering, the Jew weeps. I'm a Jew because in every age, when the cry of despair is heard, the Jew hopes.
This is like in 1894. It's really interesting. You know, it's beautiful and it's sad and it's true and it's poignant. Okay, who else has some? Robert. Okay, then Panina, but Robert, why don't you read a couple?
Okay. I am a Jew because the message of Israel is the most ancient and the most modern.
When they say Israel, they don't mean the land of Israel. They mean the people
Jewish
of Israel
people.
or the culture of Israel. Okay, read another one.
I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the universal promise.
The universal promise, it's like peace for the whole world, that nation shall not lift sword against nation. You know, you'll plow your sword, turn your swords into plowshares. This idea that it's not just we are going to be saved or we are the elite and God only loves us, but it's a promise for all humanity, which is pretty unique when you think of when Judaism began. It was in a time where every country had its own religion and its own gods, and Judaism evolved into something that could embrace everyone. Okay, who else hasn't read? Talia.
Okay, I read already, but if
Oh, no, okay, Panina.
I am a Jew because for Israel, the world is not finished. We are completing it.
So that's a beautiful idea that we still, everybody has to do our part to make the world a better place. It says in the Talmud, you're not obliged to finish the task, but you're not allowed to neglect it. You have to do your piece of it. Okay, one more, Nina.
Because for Israel, humanity is not yet fully created. We are created.
So humanity is not fully created. We are creating it. What does that mean? Humanity is not, or man is not fully created. We are creating it. What does that mean, do you think? Merle.
I'm thinking that every day is different. Every time we read Torah, we have a different interpretation based on what's going on, and that if we're never going to finish whatever it is that we're doing as far as creating and keeping the world going, that we have to look at different people and different things and how to keep building on that.
Okay, anyone else? Talia? And then I'll call everybody. Yeah.
That it's almost as if, not that we're the Messiah, but if we want peace on earth, then we have to strive toward that and let go of all of those things that cause strife and conflict on a physical level and maybe even emotional abuse, but at least in terms of finding more peace so that we're more humane, because of humanity and humane,
Right.
So I was thinking about that. I don't know how to pronounce the actor's name, John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
He has that Latin history show, and there's people that were completely wiped out because they were complete peaceniks. They would fight with swords made out of wood sticks so that they wouldn't hurt each other. And they're completely wiped out right now. So I thought how interesting, like, if you're going to be that much of a peacenik, you may not exist. And there's that balance, but it's so tough. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Roy.
What it reminds me, or maybe analogous to, is that for humanity to be sort of fully created, we have to collect all those shards of life and put everything back together.
That's beautiful. The Kabbalistic shards of light. Yes. Okay, that's lovely. Sue? Good?
But the other thing is, if we're going to usher in the Messianic age, we have to keep creating and evolving and improving ourselves.
Beautiful. Yes. Did Susan Ehrlich, did you want to say something?
Yes, it was something along those lines. And it's also like, Artson is talking about, which is Kabbalistic too, process theology, that we are helping the process, each one of us, by our mitzvot, for betterment. I mean, this comes after Darwin too. So there is Darwin in the 1860s, and this must have something but in terms of Judaism, that we can create for the better. It's also real interesting that it comes before Herzl's Alta Neuland, which was in 1902, but it was also spurred by the Dreyfus file.
That's true. Yeah, Dreyfus trial. Yes.
So there are a lot of things. There are a number of things in here that Herzl emphasized. That a Jew, because the message of Israel is the most ancient and the most modern. That was the title of Herzl's book, the Old Alta Neuland, the Old New, and he wrote about both of those together.
Which means it's like it's one of these eternal or universal or endless philosophies that don't age, never go out of style. It's always. Okay, Penina, read this one because this is the one you really liked.
Okay, I am a Jew because for Israel, humanity is not yet fully created.
No, the next one is the one you liked.
Because Israel places humanity and its unity above nations and above Israel itself.
So
I liked it is because wherever there is an earthquake or a disaster, you see always the Israelis putting a hospital there right away. They're there, in there. And another thing that I would like to bring in is that I was there when the Declaration of Independence was first created, and also when the country was divided according to the United Nations into actually two. And the Palestinian question today is a very sore question that a lot of people don't really realize how it started. And that's why we are getting a lot of negative opinions from the world because of the Palestinian situation. Well, Israel was divided to have room for both.
Yeah, I know.
It had borders to accommodate both. We were willing to share. The Palestinian did not.
I know. Yeah.
Other nations did not. And they gathered 7 nations, led by the big Farouk, I don't know who you want to call him, and started a march to annihilate us, to throw us into the sea. The Palestinians actually was told to leave their homes because there were flyers falling from airplanes and from whatever it is that could have sent flyers, that they should fled Israel because there is no way to see who is really a Palestinian or an Arab Palestinian and who is a Jew. And they intended to throw everybody into the sea. That was
this is not our topic, but we're going to do a thing on Israel. But you're right. But Israel still places humanity and people, even their enemies, they're going to help their enemies.
Absolutely.
This Israel, don't forget, is not the state of Israel only, but Jewish people. And we have always, again, it's that universalism, that cosmopolitanism that we see, we're able to relate to people all over the world. And we place doing the humane thing above national borders.
Absolutely.
Or even above, you're not Jewish and I'm Jewish or whatever.
Exactly.
And the last one, I am a Jew because above humanity, image of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine. In other words, beyond people, individuals, it visions a unity and a God that blesses all of us and watches over all of us. That's the unity that he's talking about. So you have an opportunity here to choose why, and people ask you, what is it to be Jewish, or why am I Jewish, or what do I love about Judaism? What do Jews believe? We have, I think, a lot of different points of view. Again, it's typical of Israel, Jews, right? That there are multiple points of view. And so I'm gonna end our class on stay Jewish. No, I'm kidding. Happy Simchat Torah. And I want to invite you all to Sunday. Maybe you saw the advertisement. Between 5 and 6, we're having speed study, 5 minutes with each rabbi. I'm teaching about women. Everybody else is teaching about men. I thought of Talia when I picked my topic. 1 second. And then there's a break. And then I'm showing this beautiful documentary called Mitzvah 613. And 613th mitzvah, according to tradition, is to write a Torah. And it's with this scribe. It's a little brand new documentary who repairs Torahs from Czechoslovakia that were rescued from the Holocaust, and then placing them in different communities, and how he shows you how you write a Torah and the whole thing, but how it changed him doing this. And by the way, we have a Torah at the Glazer campus from Czechoslovakia. And then that's for a little more, less than a half an hour. And then the scribe himself and the producer and someone who's going to talk about our Torah are going to be in conversation. And then we're going to have a Q&A. And he's going to talk about that. So that's from 7 to 8, and from 5 to 6 is the different rabbis, and they have the different topics. And mine is on the daughters of Salofachad. It's called Tough Women Get Results.
You got it.
My topic. Yes, Robert.
Yeah.
In 5 minutes?
1 second. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Where can we get this link, Susan,
It's
to get
every
on?
day. It's on your.
It's on every day? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Robert.
I just wanted to thank everybody for a great class. And I think I speak on behalf on everyone when I say, Rabbi Nanus, we love you and we're grateful.
Yes.
And thank you for all your efforts to get us through the
Hugely
pandemic.
grateful.
This has been
Thank
amazing.
you, thank you.
I'll be teaching,
Thank you
in
so
a
much.
couple weeks again, next month, and then I'll be offering a bunch of new things in, January too. But all the rabbis have been teaching the same thing for like 6 months, same topic. And so we decided it's time to like give a little change.
Who
So-
thought we'd still be here, right?
Yeah. Who thought we'd still be here?
Yeah.
Probably will.
So, Chag Sameach, happy
Chag
Simchat
Sameach.
Torah.
Chag Sameach.